China will have an absolutely enormous role to play in the 21st century, and it's changing from a relatively poor country to being the factory of the world, and by the end of the 21st century it will possibly be or almost certainly be the largest economy in the world.
Moving from the rise of China to another rising population in the world, I believe the latest figures put it at nearly 9 billion by 2050.
Yes.
And with rising wealth simultaneously. If there are billions of Chinese who continue to become richer and continue to decide to eat meat, will the world's supplies of grain and water, and indeed duck, handle it?
Now, China is not going to grow very much in population because it's got a one-child policy, which is, it's loosening now. But China's population is probably near its peak. The world population would climb up probably to about 9 billion. And in China, they mostly used to eat rice, and now they're eating meat a lot. And everywhere you go in China, you see McDonald's. More than that, you see steak restaurants, which are very high-quality steak indeed. Now, steak needs far more agricultural resources than rice, in fact, far more than chickens. And China can't feed itself today. And so as it increasingly eats meat, it will be very dependent upon importing grain. China hasn't got enough water for its own needs, and you can't import enormous quantities of water. So what you do is import grain instead, because growing grain takes a huge amount of water. Grain futures are in effect water futures, and this will inevitably put up the price of grain, and we're seeing that now.
So that's one challenge we're facing. Another is catastrophic climate change, and with every new coal-fired power station that China is building each week, it's not helping. But how can China fit into a green world powered by clean energy if it still wants to lift its countryside out of poverty?
China is building one power station a week, a phenomenal number, and these are 2 gigawatt power stations, which means huge, and they're coal power stations, and the Chinese coal is particularly filthy. So if we look at the problems causing climate change, the biggest problem of all is the use of coal in China. And that's so large it really overwhelms all of the smaller things that we tend to talk about in the West. And can you stop China using coal? Well, I think it's very likely that the systems we talk about here, like cap-and-trade systems, asking for an international tax, will be ignored by China. And so China will just go on doing what it does now. There's only one thing which can change it, and that is we've got to find a source of non-carbon fuel which is cheaper than coal. If that doesn't happen, the planet's in real trouble. We're moving into some pretty bad problems with global warming and running out of water, and one can list about 15 of these severe problems, and they're going to get worse, and we need to find solutions to them. And the main burden of dealing with those problems and finding solutions to them, the solutions will present magnificent opportunities, will lie on the shoulders of people who are typically, say, 15 to 25 today. And I've been lecturing groups of people of that age group all over the world, in China and in other places. And one of the things I find extraordinary is they're pretty much the same. They ask the same questions. They vary somewhat in their knowledge of what is happening. They all realize that they've got to change the world. They all are using the internet. They tend to go into worldwide chat rooms where chat rooms are discussing this subject, and the other people in the chat rooms are people of all nationalities. So there's quite an amazing sense now that the world for people of that age group is becoming one entity, and they will need to work together to solve the very big problems of society. And there's a feeling that something exciting is happening, and this is very important, and they're going to need to make these changes, and there's got to be lots of new research, new technology, new types of energy and so on, and that will all be part of the challenge of their generation.